discussion. Hey, did you see in the news that our Congress confirmed with a resolution that the national motto is "In God We Trust"?
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't been watching much of the news, you're afraid that you've got a do-nothing Congress that's just fighting over different job bills and things like that. Well, no, they're not just fighting over the different job bills. They're arbitrarily choosing titles for a motto, and the national motto has been for, ever since we've been a country in our Constitution, "In God We Trust,"
Well, the only problem is
And the second part of that is all others pay cash. So
the only problem with that is that the word God is actually the name of a pagan deity in number 1171 in our Strong's Concordance. It's Baal God, and it's spelled G-A-D or G-A-W-D, God. Baal God, it's the fortune deity. Baal of fortune.
In fact, it's the root in astrology that comes from the Germanic form of Guad, which was actually referred to as the god Ares, the god of war among mythological deities, and it was derived directly from Baal, as you're saying.
Right. And
so if you're using a generic title, even the Bible says that Satan is the god of this world, the prince of the power of the air. So
so it's not really
my
saying
question
much.
would be, in which god do we trust?
Well, they're already identifying it on the back of the dollar bill with the all-seeing eye of Horus above the pyramid there. So, and that which is Lucifer, really. So it's like, it's been well-documented fact that most of our American presidents belonged to the Freemasons, and I think except for Kennedy and Lincoln, the two ones that got assassinated, they were the only ones that weren't. But, And
I don't know why they call them Freemasons. They should call them expensive Masons. Because I understand it's quite expensive to be. I mean, it costs you your eternal soul to join them, so that's very expensive to me. So,
yeah, well, basically they believe that the pyramids were built by these fallen angels who came down in flying saucers, which were really Nephilim, because Brother Bill Schnoblin and I talked about that yesterday, and it was very interesting discussion that we had. He explained how the fallen angels were able to leave their former estate, like it says in Jude 1:6. They left their immortal bodies, and I asked him, well, how do they do that? How do they become mortal? He said they have to drink human blood, and that's where the whole vampirism thing comes in.
Oh my goodness, that's just disgusting.
Yeah, and so by doing that, their DNA mixes with the DNA of these angels, and that's how they become, the Nephilim, But this is where the Freemason term comes from. I was watching a documentary recently about it, and they believe that the Egyptian pyramids, some of these stones are so heavy that they weigh tons, like 12 tons, and there's no
that video on Facebook and.
Yeah, there's no way that.
It's very interesting what these people are saying about that, but it is a Freemason doctrine.
Yeah, and they believe that it was these fallen angels who came down and helped them build these pyramids. So that's where they get the word Freemasons.
And it's interesting that there are 6 of the pyramids, and that if you put them together, they would form a 6-pointed star, or the same thing talked about in Amos chapter 5, Acts 7:43, the star god of Remphan and Moloch, the star god of Cuin, it's also referred to. And so there's an affection there from it's like right alongside the faith of Israel, there's this other doppelganger faith that pretends to be Israel but really isn't.
Right, exactly.
And then we see reference to that in Revelation where it says they said they were Yahudi and were not, but were of the synagogue of Satan. And we see that happening in the host of Babylon mystery religion today. It's the world religions are all the apostasy that takes on different depictions of the same form of worship. in the same words. Like you go to one culture, it's Astaria, and in another culture, it's Ishtar, and in another culture, it's Isis and Horus and
Astarte, yeah.
Astarte. But in the cultures that you can trace back, these star symbols and sun worship symbols, they're all part of the same apostasy, which started in Babylon, with witchcraft of Babylon and the witch Semiramis, as it was called in the Greek, or it's the same root word. We get the word Samaria. And that's one of the reasons why when we see Messiah coming, they talk about, these Samaritans, or these people that were kind of like outcasts that the Jews just did not like at all. I mean, see the story about the Samaritan woman at the well, and Messiah witnesses to her because she is, inquiring.
Well, Jezebel became the queen over Samaria when she was married to King Ahab, so it kind of fits because Jezebel was almost like a type. A type of Semiramis, almost like a revived Semiramis, if you will.
And we find that an interesting thing happens when you start to study genealogies and histories surrounding biblical events and things on prophecy and such. Certain families seem to gravitate towards certain things that their forefathers gravitated to. And we find out why when we read the Torah. It says that sins of the father passed on to the child for 7 generations, and so there is a familiar spirit that will follow these family lines, and that's why when you find in Freemasonry and a lot of the cultish worships, the Babylon mystery religions, you see this affection toward the family histories and genealogies, which, the Freemasons have their family histories and genealogies in the under what they call the worshipful master, who's the head of each lodge. And if you go into one of their buildings, you'll see they have these little boards called the Enchanted Lanterns with the names of all the Freemasons on it. So there's a lot of this genealogical affection, and what it is an adoration of familiar spirits or demonic spirits that follow the families and encourage them to commit the same abominations against Yah that their forefathers have.
Well, yesterday, Brother Bill Schnoblin and I were talking about how some of these Satanists, and he's familiar with this because he used to be a Satanist prior to his conversion to the Messiah, but they use the Tetragrammaton, the 4 letters to the Father's name, as like a magic formula without having a relationship with him, without having the blood atonement for their sins. They use the Tetragrammaton almost like they're invoking magic power from those letters.
Right.
And just because Satan tries to steal these things doesn't mean that the name is pagan. But what happens is Christians find this information and go, oh, see, the sacred name's pagan. But you got to go back to where something originated and realize that Satan will hijack something that was originated with Yahuwah, and then he'll try to act like it originated with him, when in reality all he did was take something that originated with Yahuwah and tries to hijack it for himself. Right. And so they do the same thing with the Tetragrammaton,
Yeah, well, it's common among those who are going against the Almighty to use generic terms like God and then to use the sacred name to blaspheme in some way because they think that he gives them satanic power. But really, it's a fallacy. It's an empty faith. It's an empty life. It's
fitting that they have "In God We Trust" right underneath the all-seeing eye of Horus, and they're basically putting it on money, because what is their God? Their God is money. Okay, and then you have the Hebrew Strong's Concordance telling us that the word Baal, God, is the Baal of fortune. So they worship money. I mean, you can connect the dots here and realize that it's what's written on the dollar bill. In God We Trust, it's not the God of Israel. It's not Yahuwah Elohim. It's another.
Yeah.
Another,
Yeah, your connection's getting a little bit foggy there coming through. But, it's not the creator of heaven and earth. It's not the deity that Israel worshipped. And, that's what I want to say. Which God? it's not the God of Israel, the Creator, the one true Creator that made heaven and earth and all that is within them. It has become something else, even though maybe some of the forefathers of this nation had intended it to be the Creator, Yahuwah, the one worshipped by Israel, and the one followed by the followers of Mashiach. But in reality, they are really worshiping power and wealth. And it's the same thing that we see among Christian existentialism and Christian mysticism that we see on the bookshelves at Christian bookstores, like The Secret, where you can tell the universe what you want and it just has to miraculously appear. You know, it came out of the doctrine of you say it and it happens doctrine, you know, that was popularized in the 1980s and 90s with what I like to call the gospel of free enterprise, that negates the power of the Creator for worldly gain and possession. So, in reality, you will be blessed, blessings that Yah Almighty wants to bless you with, if you keep His commandments. And if those blessings come upon you, it is by the sole discretion and choice of the Heavenly Father, not by anything that we can do or say, other than we submit ourselves to the Creator in prayer and in worship to Him, and look to Him for our eternal salvation. As Maria pointed out and sent to me Jeremiah chapter 2, it says, "And I brought you into a plentiful country to eat the fruit thereof and the goodness thereof. But when you entered, you defiled my land and made mine heritage an abomination. The priests said not, Where is Yahuwah? And they that handled the law knew me not. The pastors are transgressed against me. The prophets prophesied by Baal and walked after the things that do not profit. Wherefore I will plead with you, saith Yahuwah, and with your children's children will I plead, for pass over the isles of Chittim and see, and send unto Kedar, and consider diligently, and see if there be such a thing. Hath a nation changed their gods, which are yet not no gods, or not gods? But my people have changed their glory for that which doth not profit. Be astonished, O you heathens, at this, and be horribly afraid."
You mean heavens.
Yeah, okay,
you said heathens.
Well, the heathens should be astonished too, okay?
No, I know. It's just funny because it fits, but it's... Yeah.
"Be astonished, O you heavens, at this, and be horribly afraid. Be ye very desolate, saith Yahuwah. For my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, that the fountain of living waters, and hewed them out cisterns, broken cisterns that can hold no water."
That's right. Yeah. So when what was this thing that Congress determined yesterday, Dan?
Well, tried to just verify the motto, and it was kind of like, I guess they were trying to slap Obama in the face and say, well, our national motto, because he made a mistake and said the national motto is E pluribus sum, and so they passed a thing that says the motto is "In God We Trust." But I would like to say, my motto is "In Yahuwah Almighty, the Elohim of Israel, I trust."
Exactly.
And all others pay cash. No, I'm just kidding.
Right, but see how it says, "Has a nation changed their gods, which are yet no gods?"
Yeah.
And so we've changed our gods in this nation, They worship the god of money.
Well, I think originally the Puritans, when they came here, prior to the formation of the Constitution and such, and the intention of the people, even at the time of the formation of the Constitution, is to say there is a one true Creator, that He should be worshipped, and all others ignored, because they are not really even deities. So,
well, there's a lot of bad things written about the Pilgrims in the history books now.
A lot of the rewritten history that has been occurring as a result of
the Jesuits.
The Catholic University that's been in the news, the Georgetown University, John Carroll, and I went to John Carroll for officers training as a young man there, because that's the only place they had ROTC officers training. The Catholic Church has seized control and infiltrated the United States government. It was a subtle, hostile takeover to get Catholic control of the United States of America. And it is the unspoken intelligence story of the century. of how it happened, and most people just, oh, you're just being extremist. No, most of the officers and most of the officers training institutions and most of the government agencies go into, political science training and such, or places like Georgetown University, Catholic University. Look at it. I mean, you got Catholic Bill O'Reilly and Catholic Bob Beckel on Fox News and Catholic Hannity all fighting left versus right with Catholic, Mr. Moore, who does basically communist films. This is a Catholic-led conspiracy with Catholic players that are arguing Catholic points to divert your attention from the truth. And the truth is that they've compromised with the worship of Hasatan, and they are just playing a game, left versus right, to try to distract you from what is really happening.
It's the Hegelian dialectic.
It's the seas of Hasatan of the world. And if you're diverted, it's like the illusionist, the magician, as they're called. They don't really perform magic. They perform illusions. They make it appear as if something is happening or disappearing. It's not. They're diverting your attention just long enough for a brief second so that you aren't seeing what they're using as a trick. Small felt strings, small silk strings, mirrors, smoke, all different sorts of, false backs, perception, depth perceptions using black against black. These are what the magicians use to make you think that something magical is happening. But
the Pilgrims outlawed Christmas and Easter when they first came over here. They formed legislation that prevented us from engaging in these pagan practices because they had just escaped the tyranny of the papacy, in England.
Yeah, and about that on the morning show the other day with Jeff Gilbert and me and a couple of the brothers. We were talking about that, and there was actually a fine of 5 shillings in Boston for keeping Christmas. So, yeah. And it really wasn't until 1870 to 1900 that the whole Christmas idea came to be, but that's a whole nother show. I wanted to cover this from Isaiah 66 because I didn't really get enough time in Faith Radio to really connect the thought together, and I wanted to, for the listeners, tie this together. I want to read Isaiah 66. It says, "Thus saith Yahuwah, the heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. Where is the house that you built for me? And where is the place of my rest? For all those things hath mine hand made, and all those things have been since, saith Yahuwah. But to this man I will look, even to him that is poor and contrite, and of a contrite spirit, and trembleth at my word," or is frightened by the word of the Almighty, in respect, of course. "He that killeth an ox as if he slew a man, he that sacrifices a lamb as if he cut off a dog's neck, he that offers an oblation as if he had offered swine's blood, he that burneth incense as if he had blessed an idol. Yea, they have chosen their own ways, and their soul delights in their abominations. I also will choose their delusions, and will bring their fears upon them, because when I called, none did answer. When I spake, they did not hear, but they did evil before mine eyes, and chose that which I did not delight in. Hear the word of Yahuwah, you that tremble at his word. Your brethren that hated you, that cast you out for my name's sake, said, Let Yahuwah be glorified, but he shall appear unto you joy, and they shall be ashamed. A voice of noise in the city, a voice from the temple, a voice of Yahuwah that rendereth recompense to all his enemies. Before she travailed, she brought forth. Before her pain came, she was to deliver of a man-child. Who hath heard such a thing? Who hath seen such things? Shall the earth be made to bring forth in one day? Or shall the nation be born at once? For as soon as Zion travailed, she brought forth her children. And I'm just going to stop there. You can read the rest of it yourself, and you can see it is very clear that the events that are happening in our lifetime are Isaiah 66 events. Israel was born in one day in 1948. And we know the prophecy says that the same ones that see the fig tree bud or see the olive tree bud. I forget which it is. What is it? The fig tree, Merola? Mary.
You talking about the one in Haggai 2?
Yeah, it says the nation, the generation that sees the fig tree bud.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, you're talking about
the generation that shall see the second coming of the Son of Man.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's in the book of Matthew where he says, for when you see the fig tree blossom, then you shall know that summer is near. Or, King James says nigh. But
it's a direct reference to also what's in Revelation, which is the one new man child that is thrown into the wilderness. It says she bears in a new man child. Literally, I believe the woman is Babylon mystery religion. The one new man child is those who are coming out to form the bride of Messiah and are thrown into the wilderness. And we see this, the earth bringing forth Zion, the one new man child, the true Israel of the Almighty coming out of all the world's religions, and that child coming out in that nation. So there is another fulfillment besides Israel becoming a nation in 1948, which it says this is the season of this happening. There is this other child, which is the true Hebrew nation of Israel, the people of Yah, who are the wilderness experienced people who are going to go into the time of trouble and literally run to the wilderness, as it says in Revelations. This is the bride of Messiah. So that's what I was making inference to in Faith Radio at the end, is that we who see this season, not all of us shall pass before the end comes. That generation. Now, it's been 60 years, roughly. It's coming up 65 or so. Almost 70 years. Let's see, 48, 58, 68, 78, 88, 98. It was 60 years. 2008 was 70 years. So that generation, all it requires is that one person that saw Israel become a nation in 48 be alive at the time. So if we go by the dating method of modern times and say something like 2031, which would probably be about 3 years off, we'd be more like 2028 because of the error in the Addo Domine dating system from the crucifixion, death, burial, resurrection of Messiah going 2,000 years or two candlesticks or two eras to the forward. Then we would see that the people that saw Israel become a nation would be about 80 years old in 2028. So it's conceivable that they would see the coming of Messiah if you use that dating method. And I'm not saying we're going to use that dating method, but what I'm saying is just as an example. But the important thing is that we remember that we are in that final season, and we know it because when we read prophecies like Isaiah 66, we see, and when we see the divisions happening among religions and the unity happening outside of religion in the Hebrew nation of faith, and how everything seems to be moving toward leaving the strong delusions that the world seems to really affectionately embrace and come to a true Hebrew roots of the faith, that we see that there is a move of the Spirit, that there is that calling of Zion travailing and bringing forth the one new man, which represents the body of Messiah, the believers. And even later on in that verse in 66, it talks about the Gentiles like a flowing stream. And it includes that there are Gentiles called by his name that join the Hebrew nation of Israel, the true callers on the name of YAHUWAH for salvation. And so I just wanted to bring that to a culmination so that people understood exactly what I was saying about Isaiah 66 and how I believe it. Unfortunately, though, we are under that period, which we read about in Isaiah chapter 66, verse 4, the strong delusions that are happening now. And Paul writes about because people didn't love the truth, that a spirit of strong delusion would come on them, that they would believe a lie as if it was the truth. And we see that over the last 200 to 400 years, where people believe it's okay to eat swine's flesh, where people believe it's okay to, lie to your children and tell them a fat red-suited warlock is going to give them gifts on December 25th, where people believe that Ishtar, the fertility goddess day, is somehow a celebration of the resurrection of the Messiah. This is a strong delusion, a strong trick, where their minds are convicted to believe the lie because they don't love the truth. And the truth is found in Torah, in the commandments. And the picture and shadow pictures of salvation is found in the Torah, Leviticus chapter 23. And all these revelations are based and rooted in the first 5 books of the Bible, the Torah, the Pentateuch, as it's been called, which is Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, which is the basis of all law for all mankind. All the laws of the world have been based on that. And so, therefore, if even the law of gravity is based on that Creator speaking and causing all things to be, then all the laws that are still in effect, including the law of gravity, because a lot of people say to me, Maria, oh, the law's done away with. It was nailed to the tree. Oh, really? Okay, so jump out of an airplane without a parachute and tell me how the law has been done away with. Because the law of gravity will sneak up on you and turn you into a little splat on the concrete pavement or in the field wherever you land. The law is still in effect. If the law was not in effect, then gravity would be usurped and we could just float off into space or fly wherever we wanted to. That is chaos. To say that chaos has taken command over the law of Yahuwah Almighty and the very principles by which He formed the universe by His speaking. It says Yah spoke and it was. At the very first books of Genealogies, Yah said, "Let there be light," and there was. His speaking created the laws and framework of the existence of the universe. And then His laws given to Moses are the culmination of how we interact with that universe that He created. Then we should certainly think twice before we try to break the laws, including the law of gravity, or the 10 Commandments, or thou shalt not steal, or all these other laws, because we should strongly consider what it is we're about to do before we get involved into something that is against the law. I'm sure there are plenty of police officers and other law enforcement agencies that would tell you the exact same thing.
Right, exactly.
You may think about it, but don't do it,
There's actually some people who claim to be Hebrew roots, Messianic believers. On Facebook, I was just noticing last night, and they're saying that the tithe command is done away with. And I said, oh, really? I said, well, the tithe, because they said that the Levitical priesthood is not in operation. I said, well, the tithe has been transferred back over to Melchizedek because originally the tithe went to Melchizedek from Abraham. So not one jot or tittle is done away with. Our Messiah even told us in Matthew chapter 5 that one jot or tittle shall in no wise pass from the Torah or the law until all is fulfilled. And so the tithe still belongs to the priesthood, whether it's Levites, whether it's Melchizedek, and we are all part of a royal priesthood according to 1 Peter.
So to kind of culminate the whole show today, it's kind of like who is your Elohim? Who is your mighty one? It's like the two enemies on the battlefield. They come up with a shield and they say, my mighty one is Baal, and then the son of Israel comes and says, my mighty one is Yahuwah Almighty, the creator of heaven and earth, and everybody, including you, shall bow at that name, and in the end every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess that Yahushua HaMashiach is Yahuwah Almighty in the flesh, and that He has come to save and purchase our family, known as Israel, the Israel of Almighty Elohim Yah. So if that's it. So Otto and Yahuwah we trust.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, and in His commandments we shall follow, not in the ways of religion in the world. All right. Morning. Next.